Hello and welcome to this Infowars News Brief. I'm Julio Noel Rausseo reporting for Infowars.com from Chicago, Illinois, inside of FEMA Region 5. We have an exclusive story that you're only going to hear on the Infowars News Brief, and it has to deal with a chemical explosion in Japan, not talking about Fukushima. And joining me again is Michael Janich, better known as YouTube user Dutchsinse. And Dutch, what is going on in Japan, and what is the dangers of depleted uranium entering the Earth's atmosphere? What is going on? You have the floor.
Thanks, Julio. First of all, this was a very surprising discovery for me. The explosion that occurred in Japan roughly a week ago, we're going on 7 days almost exactly, a large petrochemical plant exploded over in Japan. And reports came out initially that 3,400 barrels of depleted uranium were being stored at the facility. Now, I waited approximately 4 days after that happened to issue my report. And the reason I issued a report is I normally cover jet stream patterns, weather patterns, anything that would be coming to the U.S., I would cover that weather-wise. And several of my viewers asked me, hey, what do you think about this? Do you think there's anything to worry about? Is this another Fukushima-type situation where we have a blow-up of radiological material and it's in a cloud? Officials in Japan first denied that anything was destroyed at all, anything of any consequence was destroyed. Then subsequent reports came out from multiple locations, multiple outlets, saying that the barrels were damaged. Then the Japan authorities came back out and said no damage at all, but they haven't provided. I still, right now, as of 11:38 p.m. on Sunday night, the 29th, cannot find any video or pictures of these intact barrels. Meanwhile, there's pictures of an entirely destroyed factory. Now, here's the weird thing that I discovered, and this is the breaking news part that I don't think anybody else knows or has put together yet, and I'm not saying they're 100% related. I'm just saying it's a strange enough coincidence to let our viewers know that this is really occurring. The chemical plant, I saw the name of it. It was the Mitsui Chemicals Iwakuni plant, and it's spelled Iwakuni and Iwakuni. So I decided I was going to go look that up and find out where it actually was in Japan. I wanted to see where it was in relation to Tokyo, where it was in relation to the coast, so I could figure out where the cloud's coming from. And I went and looked it up. I typed in Iwakuni on Google, and the first thing that came up was the United States' only military base, Marines, is based at Iwakuni. And I couldn't believe it. I said, oh, you've got to be kidding me. So I went and looked, and then, of course, it made sense to me that depleted uranium is used for the bullets in the military and other things. And there's probably some kind of rules or regulations maybe having to do with where the U.S. stores radiological material and other such things like that in Japan, just because it's a foreign base. And I mean, who knows why they're storing it there? But I think that's the reason it's being stored there is because in the same town, you've got the only U.S. Marines military base at Iwakuni, or Iwakuni. I don't know how to pronounce that. So there you have it. That is the breaking news. That the only connection that depleted uranium would be there for would be for the U.S. military. And then you go look up who has the only next. They say the fire was started from a bolt of lightning out of the blue, and they don't know what caused it. But right next to the Iwakuni plant, within a very close proximity, is the airfield because it's an air base. And of course, they have the only U.S.-based NEXRAD at that airport, just by coincidence. Again, I can't say that the NEXRAD caused any kind of superheating in the ionosphere to cause a electron precipitation that would then induce a lightning bolt. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying it could be a possibility if you were to somehow pull the weather data for the area. I don't know how you'd get access to that feed, but see if there was some kind of flash over the area that day. But you put all that together, to me, it's bigger than a coincidence. It's something that has to be reported. I mean, the chances that depleted uranium, 3,400 barrels of it, would be right next to where a U.S. military facility is, we can't overlook that. And if they're destroyed, well, then that would mean that it's the U.S. military's depleted uranium that was destroyed, not the Japanese, which would possibly explain why we're getting such a conflicting story coming out of the area and not telling us what's going on.
And again, this is an exclusive you're only going to hear on the Infowars News Brief. And like you just mentioned, 3,400 containers. I mean, that's not chump change here. And even just a tiny bits of depleted uranium is dangerous, let alone that high amount. And again, with the way corporate media is, not just in this country, but around the world, we are going to get conflicting stories. We are going to get, two sides to every story, one lying, one telling the truth, and some people may not know what really is going on. Dutch, what are the dangers of depleted uranium entering the Earth's atmosphere? What can people expect if DU does come onto the U.S. shores?
Well, I would consider it more dangerous than inhaling lead.
Wow.
So you got to figure heavy earth elements, whether or not depleted uranium is not hot. So we're not looking at material that's going to be in a nuclear reactor. We're looking at the material that they're making bullets out of now because it's harder and it'll penetrate several types of metal because it's more dense. So that's why they're using depleted uranium for bullets. Now, if you were to take a piece of depleted uranium and put it beneath one of my Geiger counters, you would see a huge return. You would see click, 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 click. And that's because it still is uranium. And it will always be uranium until millions of years when it fully decays into a completely other substance, which I don't know what it will decay into over that long of a time. However, so when you see that the U.S. military is storing this, they're storing lots of it at the area in question, it all starts to make sense a little bit. You have a massive explosion, a flash of lightning. We've got weather wars going on. You've got multiple nuclear fallout situations occurring out of Japan, or potential fallout situations. Again, I've got to say that we don't know what's in that cloud. Best case scenario, it's petrochemicals. Worst case scenario, it's radiological. However, whatever it is, the factory blew, and the plume is now on the doorstep of the United States. And that's where I come in is, regardless of what it is, it's something. And I don't want a pregnant mother to get out in it. I don't want a baby to get out in it. I don't want a kid playing in it. I don't want to go out in it. I wouldn't let my wife go out in it. So I'm telling my viewers, try to avoid the precipitation off that cloud for the next week or two at the most, because it's precipitation that pulls those particles out of the air. Otherwise, they're free floating very high up in the atmosphere, possibly blowing around and settling out over the entire Earth with hardly no adverse effect to humans if it settles out over a very large area over time. However, what happens is a big storm comes through and rains that down on an area, and you get an excess spike in fallout. And that's the primary fallout concern is the precipitation.
It is mind-boggling. It really is mind-boggling. Number one, that a petrochemical facility would be using depleted uranium. And number two, that it would be right next to a U.S. military base. Something is going on. And again, Infowars viewers are aware. Dr. Doug Rockey, head of the depleted uranium's program. It's just frightening to see our soldiers use this, frightening to see it in such close confines to a chemical facility, knowing that if an explosion were to happen, this could leak out. Is there any potential danger set for the United States, those maybe in the Pacific Northwest? I mean,
danger-wise, of course, any kind of particulate matter, radiation-wise, is something you want to avoid, and there's certain methods for system cleansing. You'd have to consult your physician, make sure it's okay with your physician and your body, but look into those things, look into system cleansers. Obviously, try to avoid exposure to direct precipitation. Overall, I would encourage everybody to go look into Arto Lori, which is the Fukushima theory, and why they're using HARP and HARP-type facilities to control these radioactive clouds.
And thank you to Michael Janet's YouTube user Dutchsinse for coming on this exclusive Infowars News Brief to discuss the potential of depleted uranium coming to the United States following this explosion in Japan. For more information, log on to Infowars.com.